In this very quick lesson, I just want to run through very quickly and briefly the concept of the constructive trusts of land. So the previous couple of lessons talked about the other two major types of trusts that can exist when it comes to land and trusts of land. We talked about the express trust very briefly, and then we spent a little bit more time talking about implied trusts, namely the concept of the resulting trust. And we also talked about the fact that there is an evidentiary presumption that a resulting trust exists where there is a contribution to the purchase price of a property, and that this may be rebutted, but the base presumption that exists is the presumption that there does exist a resulting trust of land, not that there exists, for example, a gift. This lesson is going to talk about the constructive trusts of land. We'll talk about one of the key cases that illustrates the point of what a constructive trust is used for and the circumstances where a constructive trust may arise. So as I've mentioned, we have been talking in the previous videos about the first of the implied trusts of land, namely the concept of a resulting trust. The concept of a constructive trust is also a type of implied trust. It is just the other type of implied trust, which is known as a constructive trust. So when you think about the two different types of implied trusts of land, one is resulting, the other is constructive, okay? What do constructive trusts of land look like? How do they work? And what are their purposes? Well, they are firstly limited to a number of situations. And we can see why this is the case and cited in the case of Lloyds Bank PLC and Rossett. This is essentially the case that we're going to use to illustrate our point about what a constructive trust of land is and how it operates. So this is a case from 1988. And in this case, a house is brought solely by one individual for the purposes of cohabitation with his partner. Again, very similar to a lot of cases that exist in this particular area, where you have the sole purchase by one person, and then you have for the reason of, or for the purpose of, the cohabitation with another person. And it is often the case that that other person has contributed significantly to the asking price. And in those situations where the other person has contributed significantly to the asking price, there is the resulting trust that arrives at the purchaser. This person who bought the house or bought the property solely for the purposes of cohabitation had taken out a mortgage with the Lloyds Bank PLC. And then when he had defaulted on the mortgage repayment, the bank sought to get an order of possession or repossession order. Essentially, when you get a mortgage, you have to keep up with the mortgage repayments. And if you default on your mortgage repayments, then the bank has an entitlement, in most cases, in most circumstances, to seek an order for possession, to essentially take the property from you. Now, the partner of the man argued that, in fact, this could not have happened because they actually had an overriding interest as part of the beneficial interest under a trust. Remember, we're talking here about a piece of registered estate. So if you refer back to what we did in the previous chapter on registered land, we can talk about this idea that there may exist an overriding interest. This is what the individual who is cohabiting with the person who defaulted on the mortgage argued is the reason why the bank cannot seek an order for possession. They had a beneficial interest under a trust, and this represented an overriding interest over the interest of the bank to get said repossession. Now, it was held ultimately that there was not an overriding beneficial interest in the property. The courts held that the constructive trust in land can arise in situations on the basis of the intentions of the parties. So this is the circumstances in which a constructive trust of land can exist. They argued that there could be an express common intention among the parties, and that this suggests the reaching of an agreement, arrangement, or understanding could be the creation or lead to the creation of the constructive trust. Now, the actions that exist that can lead to this circumstance is not necessarily just in relation to the financial contributions to the asking price. If this express common intention is not stated, then it is inferred through conduct. And this is really where we get the idea of a constructive trust. And so, as a result of which, while finding against that of the defendants, and arguing that there wasn't an overriding interest in the property itself, the court come to a conclusion as to the circumstances in which a constructive trust may exist in the property.